Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, I'll tell you right now, if Danny Garcia didn't have a tough opponent lined up before, he has one now. And he can thank his dad, Angel Garcia, for that. For some reason out of nowhere, trainer Angel Garcia, he said that Terence Crawford was a made-up champion. And compared to his son, Danny Garcia, he said Danny made himself. So Terence Crawford, he responded to Danny Garcia on Twitter, and he basically said, "Your dad said I'm a made-up champion for beating the guy y'all was scared to fight." And then Danny Garcia, he replied by saying this: "You doing what I did 3 years ago. I ain't no Little Gamboa or Stiff Postal. I end careers. Check my track record." Crawford responded, "That same guy y'all paid so y'all didn't have to fight, huh? That guy? Look, I'm not them old guys you've been fighting. You know that. So tell you what, tell your dad to make the fight, and I'll show him how much of a paper champ I am at your weight and for your belt. How you run a weight class but pay someone step-aside money not to fight you, but you ran through the weight class. Danny, your fight with Postal on HBO did 50,000 buys. If you want to do real numbers and get defeated, tell Bob to call Al Heyman." Terence Crawford, he says no problem, and then he asks Danny Garcia, who better, Rod Salka or Gamboa? And I don't think Danny Garcia responded to that question yet. Now, what's interesting about this Twitter beef is Terence Crawford's trainer, he told me if they could have any opponent, if they could have somewhat of a dream match, it would be either against Mikey Garcia or Danny Garcia. And 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, Terence Crawford is calling out Danny Garcia on Twitter. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, I tell you, man, Angel Garcia, he sure knows how to put his son close to the fire, because we already know Terence Crawford, he ain't no joke. I mean, don't get me wrong, Danny Garcia, he ain't no joke either, and I truly believe that Danny Garcia, he's underrated and he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. That would be an excellent fight. If Terence Crawford were to move up and to fight Danny Garcia, that would be interesting if Danny Garcia would even take a fight like that. Because it's hard for me to believe that he would take a fight like that, especially when he starts talking like a casual fan and he starts talking about pay-per-view numbers, which I'm still waiting. I guess they're not going to come out because I wanted to do a video on whatever the numbers would be when it comes to Terence Crawford's pay-per-view numbers, but they haven't really been released. You know, when it comes to Golovkin numbers and Canelo numbers, those numbers, they were released. So the rumors when it comes to Terence Crawford's pay-per-view numbers, they say they're anywhere from 50,000 to 75,000. But at the same time, I've already said it on numerous videos before this, the difference from a Gennady Golovkin pay-per-view card or a Canelo Alvarez pay-per-view card is the promoter and the fighters, they elected to go the pay-per-view route. They wanted to go pay-per-view. They wanted to see the numbers that they would do, and they had a projection for how many numbers that they would do. When it comes to Terence Crawford and Bob Arum, it was the contrary. Because of HBO's budget cuts, they were forced to put the Terence Crawford fight on pay-per-view. I said it on numerous occasions when this fight was announced that this fight should not be on pay-per-view. It's too early to put Terence Crawford on pay-per-view, especially when he's going up against a guy that no one really knows in boxing except for diehard boxing fans, which was Victor Postal. So whatever the numbers were, it wasn't surprising because, one more time, Bob Arum, he was forced to come out of his own pockets just to make this fight a reality on HBO. So when I see Decafs asking the question, why aren't you talking about Crawford's numbers? It's because unlike Canelo and Golovkin's numbers, Crawford's numbers were never released. We don't really know what the numbers are. Now, we know that they're low, but once again, I expected the numbers to be low, just like I expected Golovkin-Lemieux numbers to be low. Once again, that's another fight that I said should not have been on pay-per-view. So The same things that I said about Golovkin's fight, I said it about Terence Crawford's fight. Once again, the difference is Tom Loeffler and Gennady Golovkin, they took a gamble, which is nothing wrong with that, but they took a gamble. Tom Loeffler, he projected the numbers to be around 300,000, and we know those numbers came out to be around 97,000 to 150,000, right? But once again, when it comes to Terence Crawford, I didn't contradict myself because I said it from the beginning, this fight should have never been on pay-per-view. So you can't blame someone if they're forced to do something that even they didn't want to do. Now, with that all being said, when I hear Danny Garcia, say something that a casual fan would usually say, hey, well, look at your numbers. To me, that already sounds like Danny Garcia, he would not be interested in taking a Terence Crawford fight when you're talking about numbers. Because when a man calls you out, the only thing you should be talking about is getting it done. But when you start talking about numbers, etc., that sounds like reluctance to me. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Terence Crawford, he has a history with Danny Garcia and Mikey Garcia because he beat both of them in the amateurs. Now, I'm not sure, but I think Danny has a win over Terence Crawford as well, but I'm not sure. But I know Terence Crawford has a win over both Danny Garcia and Mikey Garcia. So that would be a great fight. And once again, the fact that Terence Crawford would have to move up in weight, to me, that still makes it a 50-50 fight. That's how good that fight would be. Could you guys imagine a Terence Crawford versus Danny Garcia fight on free TV? I mean, now I don't know if Bob Arum would allow that because he would have something to do with the process, but that would be huge. So we already know that Terence Crawford, he would take this fight at the drop of a hat. Let's see if Danny Garcia really wants a fight with Terence Crawford. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.